If you know the cowboy chords in standard tuning, but in open D you mostly just play bar chords with the slide, this lesson is for you, because I'm gonna show you how to transpose the basic major caged chord shapes from standard to open D, and also give you an easy formula how you can transpose basically anything between the two tunings. But in this lesson I'm not gonna have the bottleneck on, but in a follow-up I'm going to show you how to play triad inversions with the bottleneck on. The most important thing we have to understand is the relation between the two tunings, and by that I mean the interval between the notes the strings are tuned to. I suppose we all know that standard is E, A, D, G, B, E, and open D is D, A, D, F sharp, A, D. So let's see the differences between these tunings string by string. Starting on the 6th string, in standard that's an E, but we have to tune it down by one whole tone or 2 semitones to get to D. That is 2 frets on the guitar neck. So now on the D string everything is gonna be 2 frets higher than it was in the E string. Take G for example. In standard G is the 3rd fret of the E string, but in D it moves up 2 frets to the 5th fret of the D string. The next string is A and then D. Fortunately, these two strings are the same in both tunings, so no changes in the shapes there. Everything you already know in standard will be exactly the same in open D. We tune down the 3rd string G to an F sharp Do. That means 1 semitone, so 1 fret. Everything on the 3rd string will move 1 fret higher or 1 fret to the right. That leaves us with the 2nd and the 1st strings, and we tune them both down by 2 semitones, aka 2 frets, from B to A and E to D. This means both of them will move 2 frets to the right, or everything's gonna be 2 frets higher, just like on the 6th string. This gives us the easy formula of 2, 0, 0, 1, 2, 2. These are the number of frets you'll have to shift your fingers on the corresponding strings. Let's check out the first chord shape, C major, to illustrate what I mean. The C major starts on the 3rd fret of the 5th string, that's C note. The 2nd note of the C major triad is an E, which is the major 3rd of the C scale or the C chord, and that is the 2nd fret on the D string. The 3rd note of the C major triad is a G, which was the open G string in standard, but in open D we tuned the G string down to F sharp, and as I said, that moves everything 1 fret higher or 1 fret to the right. So now the G note is gonna be the 1st fret of the 3rd string. The 4th note of the C chord in standard was another C on the 1st fret of the 2nd string. But as we tuned that down by 2 semitones, that C on the 1st fret now moves up to the 3rd fret on the A string, and you can comfortably fret that with your pinky. And that actually frees up your index finger to fret the G note on the F sharp string. So this is our C chord shape in open D. As you can see, it is a closed position. We don't have any open strings ringing, so you can easily move it up and down the neck. The next chord shape, A major, also starts on the 5th string. And in standard tuning, the tab would show 0, 2, 2, 2, 0. And in open D tuning, you can start out with the same 0, 2 as your A and D strings are the same. But the 3rd string will move up to the 3rd fret from the 2nd fret because we have to add 1. On the 2nd string we have to add 2, so 2 becomes 4. And on the 1st string you will have to add 2, so 0 becomes 2. So the new A chord shape is now 0, 2, 3, 4, 2. Even though this has one open string in it, it is still kind of easily movable if you just skip that open A note. So basically you can just fret these 4 notes anywhere to give you an A-shaped chord. So for example, if you want to play like a C chord with this shape, you'll have to raise everything up by 3 frets. The next chord shape G would be a bit tricky if we would like to transpose it entirely, because the G note from the 3rd fret of the E string moved up to the 5th fret of the D string. So it makes really an impossible stretch. Okay, it's not impossible, but it's very impractical. So the way most people play the G chord is just a fragment in the or on the internal strings, like this. So we are basically skipping the 2 outer strings, which are both D. And if you think about it, D is actually the 5th note of the G major scale. That makes it a strong and stable part of the G triads. So the G major triad as well. So technically you could include the D note in your G chord, and a lot of people, including me, do include the 1st string, but I would advise to leave out the 6th string because it will sound weird. It kind of throws off the chord. See, it's way more wholesome or complete without the low D note. It works on paper but doesn't sound that good to the ears. So this is my fingering if I'm just playing the G chord. But if I want to move it around, I actually have to reposition my fingers or rearrange my fingers like this, because we have an open D string and I have to cover that with my index finger if I were to move it. So let's move up to A, for example. If you are paying attention to the A major shape we checked out before the G, you actually can see that this is almost the same shape. The only real difference is the C sharp as the lowest note instead of the A. Now the C sharp is actually the major 3rd of the A major or the A major scale or A major chord. So that is part of the A major chord. So technically you could play it either with the root note in the bottom or with the third in the bottom. It sounds a bit more stable if you have the A, the root, in the bottom. That really gives a solid foundation of tonality for A, but as I just said, it works with the C sharp as well. So I think this is one of the things that critics of the CAGED chord system often hold against it, that some of the shapes are a bit too familiar, and yes, the A and the G, as you can see, is similar in this inversion, at least, because there are obviously differences between the G and A chord in standard tuning. If you move them around, technically they are different, but I think critics say that it's not different enough to be super useful, or maybe to justify having a separate chord shape. And I kind of buy into that because the C and the D shapes are also very similar to each other, and yeah, many people say that the D shape is not really movable or usable, because the part that you're using is basically in the C shape as well. So yeah, I get that. I kind of agree with that, and actually I myself just kind of think within the three shapes and chords, which is basically A, C and E. That can be ACE as like an acronym. I think that's pretty catchy as well, but I wanted to show you all the chords, all the CAGED chords in this video, just to be sure. Anyway, let's move on to our next chord shape, E, and this is the one everyone knows, or at least learns first, because this is the most obvious. This is just the one that you can move around with the slide quite easily. In case of E, it's gonna be all the 6 strings barred across at the 2nd fret. So this is due to the fact that we are tuned to open D, and open D is actually just a big D major chord. So it has 3 notes in it: D, A and F sharp. Those are the notes in a D major triad. So that's basically the whole point of the tuning, to tune to an open major chord, D in this case. You almost made it, we are almost done. There's just one last chord shape, D major. But let's do this one differently. Instead of getting to it from the standard tuning D shape, let's derive it from the open D C shape, the first one we learned in this video. So this is C in this position, but if you shift it up by 2 frets, it's gonna be a D. So this is the C shape D, and this is the D shape D. I hope you can see the similarities. So if you take the C, we have to reposition our ring finger to the 4th fret of the 1st string. That's also a D chord, but not the entire, or not the official D shape. To get the official D shape, you have to lift up your middle finger. And basically that's it. What I wanted to demonstrate with this, if I put back my middle finger, you can see that I'm fretting the 4th fret on both the 1st and the 4th string, because they are both D strings. So because the open D tuning is just 3 different notes, 3 Ds, 2 As and 1 F sharps, you can easily just roll these shapes through the strings or just invert them. So if you know a 3-note inversion or 3-string inversion, you know where to place your finger on all 6 strings, because there's only 3 different notes. Basically, you will have to fret the same strings on the same fret. So there you have it, guys. These are the CAGED major chord shapes in open D tuning. In the next video, I will show you how to play the minor chords, but in the meantime, you can try figuring them out either with the formula or either just modifying your major chord shapes that we learned here, because as you may know, the difference between a major and minor triad or chord is mostly just one note, not the major third but the minor third is the one that you will play in the minor chords. So it's not that hard, you can give it a shot, or as I mentioned, you can just try to transpose them from the minor chord shapes that you know in standard tuning. So good luck with that, and I hope this video was helpful and understandable. Let me know in the comment section if you have any questions. I'd be happy to help, and see you in the next installment.